Well, the 10th Aether, or the 10th Aether, if you want to call it, ZAX, concludes today. Tomorrow we'll start something else with Saturday morning cartoons and Sunday school this weekend. So we're finishing up the 10th Aether, ZAX, which is quite an unusual of all the 30 Aethers that are covered in the Vision and the Voice. And because it dealt also with a ritual, if you will, or a ceremony that was performed by both Victor Newberg, who is the scribe, and Aleister Crowley, who was the seer, and the demon of the abyss, Coronzo. And because the nature of the abyss is a pretty confusing thing, so is following who's who when they're speaking in the cry of the abyss. But we're coming up to the end of it, and hopefully St. Constance has a few observations and a few words to say at the conclusion. So if she can hear us, I hope she comes in, because it's really cool. It's observations she's made as she's studying Libra 65 too, which is her studies and our morning things often seem to miraculously coincide. Anyway, we're picking up toward the end here. Woe, 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 threefold to him that is led away by talk, O talkative one. O thou that hast written 32 books of wisdom, and art more stupid than an owl, by thine own talk is thy vigilance wearied, and by my talk art thou befooled and tricked, O thou that sayest that thou shalt endure. And remember, Perdurabo's motto is, I shall endure to the end. Knowest thou how nigh thou art to destruction? For thou art the scribe. For thou art the scribe, hast not the understanding that alone availeth against Coronzo. So in other words, he's saying, Victor, you don't have what it takes to withstand this. And wert thou not protected by the holy names of God in the circle, I would rush upon thee and tear thee. For when I made myself like unto a beautiful woman, if thou hadst come to me, I would have rotted thy body with pox, and thy liver with cancer, and I would have torn off thy testicles with my teeth. And if I had seduced thy pride, and thou hadst bidden me to come into the circle, I would have trampled thee under foot. And for 1,000 years shouldst thou have been but one of the tapeworms that is in me. And if I had seduced thy pity, and thou hadst poured one drop of water in the circle, remember he asked for water, and Victor said no. Then I would have blasted thee with flame, but I was not able to prevail against thee. How beautiful are the shadows. Yeah, jumps right to that. How beautiful are the shadows of the ripples of the sand. Would God that I were dead. For know that I am thou, For know that I am proud and revengeful and lascivious, and I prate even as thou. For even as I walked among the sons of God, I heard it said that P could both will and know, and might learn at length to dare, but that to keep silence he should never learn.
I identify with that.
O thou that art so ready to speak, so slow to watch, thou art delivered over unto my power for this. And now one word was necessary unto me, and I could not speak it. I behold the beauty of the earth in her desolation. The greater far is mine, who sought to be my naked self. Knowest thou that in my soul is utmost fear? And such is my force and my cunning that 100 times I have been ready to leap, and for fear have missed. And 1,000 times I am balked by them of the city of the pyramids, that set snares for my feet. More knowledge have I than the Most High, but my will is broken, and my fierceness is marred by fear, and I must ever speak, millions of mad voices in my brain. And here's a verse. With a heart of furious fancies, wherefore I am the commander, with a burning spear and a horse of air, to the wilderness I wander. The idea was to keep the scribe busy writing so as to spring upon him. For while the scribe talked, Choronzon had thrown sand onto the circle and filled it up. But Choronzon could not think fast and continuously, and so resorted to the device of a quotation. The scribe had written 2 or 3 words of Tomo Bedlam. So Choronzon couldn't think fast enough, so he started to speak this crazy poem called Tomo Bedlam, which is slang for a beggar feigning madness. I guess it's a well-known nonsense rhyme in England. The scribe had written 2 or 3 words of Tomo Bedlam when Choronzon sprang within the circle. That part of the circumference which was nearest to him had been filling up with sand all this time, and leaped upon the scribe, throwing him to the ground. The conflict took place within the circle. The scribe called upon Tetragrammaton and succeeded in compelling Choronzon to return unto his triangle. By dint of anger and of threatening him with the magic staff did he accomplish this. He then repaired the circle. The discomforted demon now continued. All is dispersion. These are qualities, the qualities of things. The 10th Aether is the world of adjectives, and there is no substance therein. Now returneth the beautiful woman who had before tempted the scribe. She prevailed not. I'm afraid of sunset, for Tum is more terrible than Ra, and Kefra the beetle is greater than the lion Mao. I am a cold. Here Choronzon wanted to leave the triangle to obtain wherewith to cover his nakedness. The scribe refused the request, threatening the demon. After a while the latter continued. I am commanded, why I know not, by him that speaketh. Wert thou little fool, I would tear thee limb from limb. I would bite off thine ears and nose before I began with thee. I would take thy guts for fiddle strings at the Black Sabbath. Thou didst make a great fight there in the circle. Thou art a goodly warrior. Then did the demon laugh loudly. The scribe said, Thou canst not harm one hair on my head. I will pull out every hair on thy head, every hair on thy body, every hair of thy soul, one by one. Then the scribe, Thou hast no power. Yea, verily I have power over thee, for thou hast taken the oath, and art bound unto the white brothers, and therefore have I the power to torture thee so long as thou shalt be. Then the scribe said unto him, Thou liest. Ask brother P, he shall tell thee if I lie. This the scribe refused to do, saying, It was no concern of the demons. I have prevailed against the kingdom of the Father, and befouled his beard. I have prevailed against the kingdom of the Son, and torn off his phallus. But against the kingdom of the Holy Ghost I shall strive and not prevail. The 3 slain doves are my threefold blasphemy against him, but their blood shall make fertile the sand. And I writhe in blackness and horror of hate, and prevail not. Then the demon tried to make the scribe laugh at magic, and to think that it was all rubbish, that he might deny the names of God that he had invoked to protect him, which, if he had doubted, even for an instant, he had leapt upon him and gnawed through his spine at the neck. Coronzo succeeded not in this design. In this Aethyr is neither beginning nor end, for it is all hotchpotch, because it is of the wicked on earth and the damned in hell. And so long as it be hotchpotch, it mattereth little what may be written by the sea green incorruptible scribe. The horror of it will be given in another place and time, and through another seer, and that seer shall be slain as a result of his revealing. But the present seer, who is not P, seeth not the horror, because he is shut up and hath no name. Now was there something further parleying betwixt the demon and the scribe concerning the departure and the writing of the word, the scribe not knowing if it were meet that the demon should depart. And the seer took the holy ring and wrote the name Babylon, that is victory over Coronzo, and he was no more manifest. This cry was obtained on December 6, 1909, between 2 and 4:15 p.m. in a lonely valley of sand in the desert near Bausada. The Aethyr was edited and revised on the following day. At the conclusion of the ceremony, a great fire was kindled to purify the place, and the circle and the triangle destroyed. There is a further note by the scribe. The scribe. Almost from the beginning of the ceremony was the scribe overshadowed, and he spoke as it were in spite of himself, remembering afterward scarcely a word of his speeches, some of which were long and seemingly eloquent. All the time he had a sense of being protected against Coronzo, and this sense of security prevented his knowing fear. Several times did the scribe threaten to put a curse upon the demon, but ever before he uttered the words of the curse did the demon obey him. For himself, he knoweth not the words of the curse. He bluffed him. I digress for a second. Bluffing is a big thing in magic, Okay. You got to first bamboozle yourself into thinking you can bamboozle the spirits. Okay. You can say, yeah.
It's play, pretend, and practice. Magic is a practice.
And be puissant. It's like, I want you to go make Tina fall in love with me. Yes, I can do that. But you got to kill the vicar. No, I don't. No, I won't. Okay. Never mind.
You have to change your cologne. She doesn't like that one.
Okay. But we digress. Okay. It is also, it is meet to record in this place that the scribe several times whistled in a magical manner, which never before had he attempted, and the demon was apparently much discomforted thereat. Now knoweth the scribe that he was wrong in holding much converse with the demon. For Coronzone, in the confusion and chaos of his thought, is much terrified by silence. And by silence can he be brought to obey. For cunningly doth he talk of many things, going from subject to subject to subject, and he is misleadeth the unwary into argument with him. And though Coronzone be easily beaten in argument, yet by disturbing the attention of him who would command him, doth he gain victory. For Coronzone feareth of all things concentration and silence. He therefore who would command him should will in silence. Thus is he brought to obey. This the scribe knoweth, for that since obtaining the accursed 10th Aether, he has held converse with Coronzone, and unexpectedly did he obtain the information he sought after, having long refused to answer the demon's speeches. Coronzone is dispersion. And in the first part of the manuscript, he said Coronzone is distraction. And such is his fear of concentration that he will obey rather than be subjected to it, or even behold it in another. The account of further dealings with Coronzone with the scribe will be found in the record of Omnia Vincam. But we don't think any of that exists, or we don't know where that document is. Okay, that is the end of ZAX, except for a few...
That's ZAX.
Huh?
It's not ZAX.
ZAX.
The difference.
Yes, there's a difference between ZAX and ZAX. ZAX rhymes with sax. Okay, what are your observations, my dear?
Well, first of all, what the heck am I doing talking about this? This is just my opinion. And there are strange coincidences that Lon and I always seem to be working on the same subject from completely opposite directions.
And in different rooms.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah. Sometimes without even knowing about it. And that's why the flying saucer people made us arranged our marriage, because it certainly wasn't because we are compatible, because we irritate each other like no wheat and had to eat continuously. As I'm going to do for the next 5 minutes.
As you will soon see.
Anyway, I am reading from the holy books I've also read what Lon just read the last 3 days, because when I bibliomancy did, I said, well, I have to figure it out myself. And I tend to read Crowley by reading his comments after I write my own, because I figured the Class A documents I do not comment on, but the comments I make my own and argue with Crowley later. But not that I know anything, but it helps me to figure things out. If I, after he tells me what he thinks it really means, I get to add what I think it really. Anyway, the holy books I'm reading, or the one I'm reading, is the Heart, Libra 65, the Book of the Heart Girt with Serpent, and I'm reading in the synopsis about that book. This magical treatise describes particularly the relation of the aspirant with his higher self. It is, unlike in conception and execution, a masterpiece of exaltation, alike in conception and execution, a masterpiece of exaltation of thought, carved in pure beauty. And each chapter has an element, and I am reading from the 4th chapter, which is the fire element, and it's anyway, the full knowledge of this interpretation of this book is concealed from all, save only the shining triangle. The probationer must nevertheless acquire a copy and thoroughly acquaint himself with the contents. He must commit one chapter to memory, and it's AA publication Class A. And I am reading a verse, starting with verse 31 of chapter, 4, and going to verse 36. First of all, I have this, my own interpretation of red lips of nature and black lips of perfection. Isis and Nephthys, and Lon looked at me like a deer in the headlights, so I'm sure that's my own for a second. And then
it makes sense.
But I was anointed, and then almost at the end, but I was anointed by the right sweet oil of the Magister, which means?
The Magister is 8 equals 3. Bina, the supernal, first act of the supernal triad. Number 3, Bina.
What's its title?
Which is what?
Its title. It's an English title.
Bina. Oh, wisdom. Or understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, and I have, okay, that's fine. So that's, okay, we're going to get there. I'll start by reading this. I felt the red lips of nature and the black lips of perfection. This is Crowley coming to the crossing of the, getting up to crossing the abyss. And it's all about him and his guardian angel together all the time. They're talking back and forth to each other, and he's getting ready to get to the entrance of the abyss.
Believe it or not, it's exactly the area that Crowley was trying to cross in the 10th Aether.
Right.
So, yeah.
I felt the red lips of nature and the black lips of perfection. Like sisters, they fondled me, their little brother. They decked me out as a bride. They mounted me for thy bridal chamber. They fled away at thy coming. I was alone before thee. I trembled at thy coming, O my God, for thy messenger was more terrible than the Death Star. On the threshold stood the fulminant figure of evil, the horror of emptiness, with his ghastly eyes like poisonous wells. He stood, and the chamber was corrupt. The air stank. He was an old and gnarled fish, more hideous than the shells of Abaddon. He enveloped me with his demon tentacles. Yea, the 8 fears took hold upon me. But I was anointed with the right sweet oil of the Magister. I slipped from the embrace as a stone from the sling of a boy of the woodlands. I was smooth and hard as ivory. The horror gat no hold. Then at the noise of the wind of thy coming, he was dissolved away, and the abyss of the great void was unfolded before me. And I was wondering why we all why do we all seek to cross the abyss, or why do we all seek truth, right? And it's because truth is above the abyss and illusion is below the abyss, would you say?
Yeah.
If you have an opinion, you may freely express this.
Oh, no, I'm just... Yes. Yeah,
Thank
yes,
you.
you could
I
you
don't
could
mind you at least
definitely
nodding your head
you
unless
could
I'm
definitely say that.
wrong. Truth is above the abyss and illusion is below the abyss.
You could
And
you
not-
could generalize that term, yes, of course.
I think it's because we have a holy relationship with the truth, so we seek it. And crossing the abyss is what happens when you desire constant awareness of that holiness, of that truth. And you just get fed up with,
Bullshit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that note. Then,
Okay.
I think that ZAX is a. I'm going to give you a description of my description of ego, which is God knows where it came from. Let's put that literally. I know I'm not a psychologist or I'm not anything. I'm mom. I'm just mom.
And when you're not anything, you're pretty much damn across the abyss already. Okay. All right.
So my definition of ego. First of all, I think ZAX is a vivid description of ego. Of my definition of ego, which impersonates self. Thereby, it separates and disperses. It causes suffering and disease. Versus knowledge and conversation of your holy guardian angel, your true self, which unites and heals all dis-ease and suffering. Chromosome is the ego that insists you are separate from God and from everyone else, from yourself. Chromosome asks for relief from torment, which of course he causes all to us and to himself, because all that. And the scribe refuses, because there's compassion, but there's also mercy that aids and abets evil.
Right.
Chromosom's knowledge is inconstant. He has no attention span, only dispersion. He makes you think constantly, I, me, mine, that you're separate from everything, that he is your center, that sin and hate and hell are real. But knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel gives an awareness of the constancy and certainty of yourself, and that all you need do is to sit in silence and hear its voice.
Wow.
That's what happens with a cup of tea. And then I didn't get out of bed, and now I have lots of work to do.
Wow. That's very, very good.
This is what the DuQuette household is like all the time. Besides eating all
Yes.
the time. We eat a lot.
And we freeze.
We're really
We're
cold.
very cold.
We're whiny freezers, too. I mean, we're not, no.
Yes.
No. Below 60
We're
is
not
freezing.
stoic.
No.
Okay. When we're miserable, everybody knows it. Okay. Well, thank you very much, dear. And that was a wonderful cherry on top of ZAX. Until tomorrow for Saturday morning cartoons. Continue to be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Love is the law. Love under will.